After Pacindia won World War I, the new world order that emerged was led by the Pacindian Empire, the French national state and the Socialist Confederation of the Netherlands. The world erupted into proxy conflicts, economic wars, and arms races. Three very different systems clash against each other, all in the world of the eternal order.
Then came the sound of bugles, the rolling drums of doom, and the streets of Peking were as empty as a tomb.
The Cold War in this universe was far less intense as what we know from the main WICSO timeline. One aspect that I did not cover in the previous video was nuclear weapons. I really don't know how this would change, so we will just have to assume it goes the same way as in the main WICSO timeline. Military-wise, Pacindia takes the lead by a long shot with a much larger population and an insanely large economy. France and the Netherlands are tied for second place, but both lag behind Pacindia by a lot. Economically, it's a lot closer between Pacindia and the Netherlands. The large corporations of Pacindia are quite powerful and make for the largest economy on Earth, but the Dutch aren't far behind and also have a much more stable economy. France does lag quite a bit behind and also has a pretty fragile economy as they would invest a lot into their army. Internally, the Netherlands is actually the most stable country. Their social-cultural laws on stuff like equality and human rights add to their stability. However, there are growing calls for independence in their dominions. Pacindia is definitely not unstable, but the calls for sovereignty from their dominions and for equal rights is causing a major hiccup in the Pacindian realm. France is quite unstable, with the people calling for an end to the fascist government. The Cold War would end with France's fascist dictatorship falling. Spain reunites under the Western socialist government. Egypt leaves France peacefully, similar to the USSR in our world. This leads to Abyssinia occupying French Somaliland. Canada would also leave, but they wouldn't switch to democracy. Italy would also lose their fascist government, as there isn't a Rome that they can call their enemy. Catalonia also transitions to democracy. And that just leaves two fascist countries standing, Abyssinia and Austria. And real quick, I have heard complaints about the name of this country. I call it Austria because it's below Germany, and I know that it's technically not in Austria but in Bavaria. So from this moment forward, I will stop calling this Austria and will begin calling it Bavaria. Bavaria would still be pissed at the Netherlands over World War I, so would keep their fascist regime. Earlier I said that the Dutch economy was more stable than the Pacindian one, and that is important for the next part. With France eliminated, the world market would receive a major hit that would hit Pacindia extremely hard. Their economy was basically the only thing holding the nation together. The Dominions attempt to sever ties with the mainland, but to hold Pacindia together, I believe the government would be wise enough to make compromises with their Dominions. I envision full independence for the Dominions, but they would keep the Pacindian monarchy. Think of the IRL British Commonwealth for reference. That would leave the Netherlands standing as the victor of the Cold War, right? Well, not really. The events in Pacindia would undoubtedly lead to something similar in Rhodesia. Rhodesia would however remain socialist. Also, the Netherlands would probably retain some military bases in the region, as would Pacindia in their former dominions. But yes, the Dutch fall-off would be the lightest of them all. But what would the Dutch do after the Cold War? Well, for that we need to look north. Sweden had lost its importance after losing to the Netherlands and Norway. To preserve their sovereignty, they had switched to socialism right after the Netherlands did. Now, with the Netherlands distracted with their internal situation, Norway figures that an invasion of Sweden would go unpunished. They are wrong. Dutch forces would roll across the border to help out their Swedish allies. I use the word allies very loosely here, as the Netherlands do not have an alliance. This is simply being done to preserve international unity and Swedish sovereignty. Danzig and Scotland would also join this war, although their contribution would mostly be in morale. Norway would need to cede land to Sweden and gain a new government. Pacindia would experience something similar in their backyard. Eritrea would have gained independence from Catalonia by this point, and the still fascist Abyssinians would invade the nation. They would receive an ultimatum from Pacindia to stand down or face a coalition against them. After Abyssinia refused, it marked the beginning of the Horn Coalition War. The coalition was led by Mesopotamia and Pacindia, with Persia, Egypt, Arabia, Yemen, Aden, Bahrain, Afghanistan, Tanzania, Tajikistan, Bangladesh, Tamil, Australia, Vietnam, South China, Pontus and Crete, whilst also having volunteer forces from the Netherlands, Greece, Korea, Tibet, Caspia, the Circle Nations, Tasmania, Galicia and Paraguay. This truly was a worldwide coalition. It took 3 years to topple the regime, and the war devastated the region, but democracy was given to Abyssinia. After this, the coalition members and many more countries decided to form a world organization to prevent future chaos. Throughout my YouTube career, I have seen organizations like this many times, and they always came with different names. The main WICSO timeline had the Organization of States and the Assembly of Nations, whilst other WICSOs have different names too, like the Council of Nations from Olson's WICSO. I myself used the name Mondile League in LLDK, so I'll run with that once more in this world. The Mondile League would consist of these nations and would feature Pacindia, Mesopotamia, Ukraine, Netherlands, and Africa on its Security Council. Bavaria would still have their radical regime too, and the ML would agree that this government must be toppled. After a brief invasion, the country would be divided between Krakow, Netherlands, Slovenia, and Switzerland. We have reached the end of the scenario, but as you all know, WICSO doesn't end after the Cold War. In the main WICSO timeline, the age of radicalism happened after the Cold War, but we have already had this during the Cold War now, so more radicalization afterwards might not happen. So the following is not a very serious prediction, but simply made for the sake of world building. America, Canada, and Central America would still be nationalist and are unlikely to go along with the Mondile League. If they were to invade one of their neighbors, this could start a new world war. Central America might invade Guyana, as they could see it as the final step in kicking out the Spanish colonizers. For context, Spain kept Guyana after World War I, but never lost it to Central America. Instead, it went its own way following the West European War. Another war might be between Greenland and Canada. This war, which I will call the Second World War, would have the Mondile League fight America, Canada, Central America, Uruguay, Argentina, which are dictatorships, Guinea, also a dictatorship, Kazakhstan, Tatarstan, several Japanese warlord states, and importantly China. China is completely surrounded by enemies, so would join the anti-ML alliance. Who wins this war is up in the air, so I will release the maps for this series, allowing you to make your own continuation if you want.
The year was 1900, 'tis worth remembering the men who lived through 55 days at Peking. 'Twas called the Boxer Insurrection, a bloody Oriental war against all nations of the diplomatic corps. The flags of France and Britain, how they fluttered in the breeze, the Italian and the Russian, and the flag of the Japanese. Then came the sound of bugles, the rolling drums of doom, and the streets of Peking were as empty as a tomb. Boom, boom.